So I was out thrifting the other day and I found another fucking beautiful book that I wanted to show you guys. This book is called The League of Regrettable Superheroes by John Morris. And essentially this just acts as like a record of some of the most ridiculous fucking superheroes to have actually been published. So I want to play a quick game real quick. I'm going to flip to a random page in this and we are going to discover a terrible superhero together. Alright, let's get this started. Eeny, meeny, miny, you. B-Man! B-Man first appeared in Double Dare Adventures published by Harvey Comics in 1966. He was created by two guys named Otto Binder and Bill Drought. And Homeboy was just straight up a fucking bad guy. This cover said superheroes. Barry E. Ames, spelt like this. Note the fucking anagram. Otto and Drought probably thought that they were fucking geniuses with that one. So from the sounds of it, Barry Ames was just a mission control technician for NASA, who had sabotaged the landing platform for an incoming spaceship simply because he wanted to steal whatever the fuck was inside to sell it. Like I said, B-Man is a fucking bad guy. Could have gone with Killer Bee, the Wasp, Yellow Jacket, not B-Man. However, when Ames goes to the rocket ship to find out what's inside, he opens it up simply to find giant mutant space bees. It's legit just that fucking card from Cards Against Humanity of just bees. The bees do what bees usually do and kick the living shit out of him, and then drag his fucking horribly brutalized body to their alien planet, where they then recruit him, deck him out in specially made bee armor, and send him back to Earth, sporting supersonic wings, a stinger on his fucking nose, and honey grenades. What do you think Tarzan of the Space Bees does when he comes back to Earth? Try and take it over, become a supervillain? You know, what's his deal? He becomes a petty crook. Yep, just steal shit. Specifically gold, radium, and I quote, life-giving honey! However, he's only a bad guy for a single issue because in his second appearance, he's all of a sudden a good guy. Apparently, the giant mutant killer space bees actually want to take over Earth, and their queen is a humanoid figure named... Guess what she's fucking named. Guess. I dare you. What the fuck is the queen of the bees named? It's Agatha actually. The queen bee! Her name's Queen Bee! Anyway, yeah, apparently Barry's not cool with world domination, petty crook, and all. He was in this for the honey, man! Yeah, so he worked with the FBI to stop the alien invasion. I don't know why the FBI is dealing with the alien invasion. And because of that decision, he is actually granted a special agent status in a brand new section of the government called the FBI! Thankfully, he only appeared twice because the comic was canceled immediately afterwards because one of their headliners was fucking B-Man! Yeah, so anyways, this book is fucking amazing, and let me know if you want more of these. FBI, Barry, Ames, Queen Bee. The sheer number of fucking puns in this video has hurt my fucking soul.
Yeah, Rorschach is not remotely a hero, nor was he ever intended to be.
Do not heroize or idolize Rorschach in any way. At all. Ever. For literally any fucking reason. If you haven't already seen JStube's video on the subject, go fix that. In fact, go follow her. She's awesome. And in fact, I'm just gonna continue with the point she was making because Rorschach is not a good guy. None of the heroes in Watchmen are good people, least of which Rorschach. Oh, but Panda, he's such a fucking badass. Shut the fuck up. No, he is not. I don't know where the perception of Rorschach as, like, Batman mixed with the Punisher came from. Who am I kidding? Yes, I do. Thanks, Zach. But that is not the intended view of the character at all. In the text, he is written as an incel who takes out his anger on crime. Dude is not a master detective. He gets all of his information from one news source, which is essentially Fox News on steroids. He is shown throughout the entire text to be a misogynist, a homophobe, and just a litany of other reactionary bullshit. Now, yes, I will grant you, Dave Gibbons is an amazing artist and Alan Moore is an amazing writer. They made exactly the character they wanted to make, and that character is executed spectacularly. However, I think a lot of people forget the fact that Watchmen is a critique. It is a critique of politics at the time, it's a critique of pop cultures at the time, and it is a critique of comic books at the time. On top of being a major critique of the objectivist worldview, Rorschach is also a critique of the rambling conspiracy theorist, shoot first and ask questions never hero that was becoming very popular at the time. Remember Punisher War Journal? Remember Asbat? Remember, like, everything Batman says in The Dark Knight Returns? Back when Watchmen was first conceived, they weren't actually going to use original characters. They were going to use the characters of Charleston Comics that DC recently acquired. Rorschach was originally going to be Steve Ditko's The Question, with a healthy little splash of Steve Ditko's Mr. A in there. Both of which were rambling, reactionary conspiracy theorists with a black and white view on the world. Rorschach was never written to be admired. Everybody loves to quote his badass moments, but nobody quotes the freak shit. Let's take a gander, shall we? When I had cut it enough, it didn't look like a woman anymore. Stood in street, watched it burn, imagined limbless felt torsos inside, breasts blackening, bellies smoldering, bursting into flame one by one. Watched for an hour. Nobody got out. Meeting with Veidt left bad taste in mouth. He is pampered and decadent, betraying even his own shallow, liberal affectations. Possibly homosexual, must remember to investigate further. For fuck, the one newspaper that he reads has an entire article in the book defending the KKK. He admires two people on his super team, his best friend and the fucking comedian. And if I have to explain why admiring the comedian is a bad thing, then you should read Watchmen again. Rorschach is not a hero. So, I was thinking about Wolverine earlier, and before you say it, don't mind the snoring, I have dog. It's late, she's sleepy. Say hello to your adoring public, Ella. You have to deal with that. But anyway, I was thinking about Wolverine, and I have a question, or a theory? A question. Does the muscle that extends his claws also straighten his wrist? Because think about it, if Wolverine's claws are stored in his forearm, then if his wrist isn't straight when his claws extend, then... well, so does the muscle that extend his claws kind of work like the muscle that is in your hand, where you can't really flex all of the muscles in your hand without clenching your fingers? Or is he just really fucking careful about straightening his wrist out every time? Because his claws are sharp as a motherfucker. They will pierce through anything. So if his hand isn't perfectly straight, if it's turned even slightly, those claws are coming out somewhere they're not supposed to. I don't know. It's a weird thought. Let me know your opinion in the comments. Say goodbye to everybody, baby. Okay. Please excuse the sweat, I'm in the gym right now, but I have a question for you guys. Stitch this video and tell me, what is the one piece of random, obscure nerd memorabilia that you desperately want to own? Specifically, stuff that you can't just buy at a comic shop. I'll go first. For me, for the longest time, it was a Star Wars Stormtrooper helmet. The Stormtroopers are like my favorite part of Star Wars just because they are both really cool looking and exceptionally fucking stupid. But for my 21st, because my parents are awesome and just as big of nerds as I am, case in point, my dad made these. They got me one. Can't see fucking shit out of this. So my second in line is one of two choices. One is Lobo's vest that says "Bite Me Fanboy" on the back. This one, in case you were wondering. Or option number two, a vintage train lantern like this one that I can paint green. Mind you, I don't mean just any train lantern. I mean this variety specifically because this is the one that the Alan Scott Green Lantern used. I've been hunting for those motherfuckers like Kraven going after Spider-Man. So I'm curious, what's yours? Stitch me and let me know.
What counts as canon? Like, from when to when?
So, I'm gonna answer your question, but I'm also gonna use this opportunity to discuss my philosophy on the subject. I've stated my personal philosophy on it, but that was like before I had even 200,000 followers, so most of you probably haven't fucking heard it. You asked for DC, which currently in the comics right now, DC's basically having an existential crisis, so everything is canon? From what I understand, the end of Dark Knight's death metal actually made everything that has ever happened in the DC universe canon, with the exception of Elseworld stories, which are reserved for multiverse-level threats. But most comics are kind of operating off of the idea that everything from the New 52 to now is canon, other than select events. Canon kind of shifts depending on the comic that you're talking about, so it's not really a definitive, this is what is canon for the DC universe. But in its simplest form, the easiest way to think about it is New 52 to DC Rebirth happened, and then DC Rebirth to now is what's canon. Apparently characters right now can remember everything that happened before the New 52, and hell, even before like Infinite Crisis and Crisis on Infinite Earths, but they don't really address that very much. So just kind of assume that DC Rebirth is going on, and if you have a favorite event from before the New 52, it happened. Congratulations. However, my personal philosophy on the subject is a little bit more abstract. I believe that for all comics, whatever you consider canon is canon. Because honestly, the amount of time that you would need to read every single comic that is canon to get the proper interpretation of the character would take you fucking millennia. Batman's been continuously ongoing since 1939. There's no way you've read every Batman story. So personally, I subscribe to everybody's headcanon of a character is their canon interpretation of the character. Everyone's canon is gonna be different. I've read different Batman stories than you, so your Batman is different from my Batman. Same with your Robin, your Captain America, America, you're Superman, you're any comic character ever. Even Elseworlds events kind of color your interpretation of a character. I have read Spider-Man Reign, and that has colored my interpretation of the character, even in stories before Spider-Man Reign takes place. You might not have read Spider-Man Reign, and instead have good mental health. So I mean, basically my personal philosophy on canon is who fucking cares? Like what you like about a character, and if someone says that their version of the character is different, you're right. Their version of the character is. That is always gonna happen. Hell, even if a writer says that something didn't happen, fuck them. You like that story? Keep it in. In my personal canon of Jason Todd, everything that happened right before the New 52 started happened. Scarlet, the stupid pill helmet outfit, all of it. But that might not be the case for you. You might think that Red Hood and the Outlaws is the definitive version of Jason Todd, which is fair. We're both Red Hood fans, but those interpretations are going to be different. It seems like DC is kind of trying to push this approach with the whole revelation of everything is now canon. We'll just have to see how long that lasts. So yeah, official answer, everything from like the New 52 to now is canon, and personal answer, who fucking cares? Okay, so I'm gonna warn you out front, this is probably gonna be pretty negative. I'm going to be talking about Titans. I'm going to be talking about my opinions about Titans. And I'm not sure yet, but this might be multiple 3-minute parts. If anyone ever comments asking about my opinions on Titans, please just tag them in this video. In short, I really do not like Titans. I watched like the first 2 episodes of season 1 and immediately put it down. Titans felt to Teen Titans the way that Riverdale felt to Archie comics. Overly dark, overly edgy interpretations of characters that did not need to be overly dark and edgy. Characters that already had interesting, deep, and dark storylines that could have been adapted that got thrown away for different interpretations of the characters. On top of that, with Jason Todd being one of, if not my favorite DC character of all time, that interpretation of the character physically hurt me. Yeah, a little bit of a warning out front. This rant is probably going to be focused a lot on Jason Todd because that has really colored my view of the series. They took a character that to me is very deep, very complex, with a lot of different parts to his personality, and yes, part of that being brash dickheadedness, and kind of boiled him down to he's the asshole Robin. He's the Robin that curses, he's the Robin that fights too rough, he's the Robin that's overly excited to be Robin. Which, yes, those character traits can be seen in Jason Todd, but that seems to be his whole character in the show. Jason Todd is a bookworm, he's a nerd, he's energetic and full of life, and just has a very strict view on what's right and wrong, even when he was just Robin. And all of these opinions I've stated before in a video that I posted just forever ago. And when I stated that I hadn't watched much of it and immediately put it down, most people told me to give it a second chance, which I refused to do until today when I watched episode 1 of season 3. When one of my followers on Twitter, as well as Shanibo Ray, told me that they made an allusion to my Alfred Call the Guy bits in the show. They didn't directly, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't inspired by me, but he does have a repository of potential Robins on his computer, and it stated that he adopts Robins within a week of the other one leaving, which is admittedly very close to my bit. However, I also watched it because I heard that they were going to be adapting both Death in the Family and Under the Red Hood, which I'll admit I did not watch because I was excited to see these stories adapted, but more wondering what they would do to them. Because Under the Red Hood is not a Titan story, it is very much a Jason and Batman story, in a show where the only time we've ever actually seen Batman is in a dream sequence, which I am just now realizing that I am not going to have enough time to shove into this video, so I'm going to make another video where I talk about that first episode and my opinions. I don't want this to be taken the wrong way. I am not dissing on the creators, I am not saying that the show is bad, and I'm not saying that you cannot like it. I am just saying that it is not for me. So with all that out of the way, I'll see you in part 2. This is part 2, go back and watch part 1 to get caught up. Really? Trying to film a video here, dick. So, Season 3, Episode 1. Death in the Family. The introduction of Under the Red Hood. I now understand how Avatar fans felt after the movie. So let's start with the beginning. Instead of Jason going after his mother, and that being the reason that he gets killed, it is because he has something to prove, and he goes after the Joker after Bruce directly tells him not to. There's no deeper meaning to it, there's no nothing, it's just Jason found the Joker, and he goes to fight him. I should also say, spoilers, obviously. Joker then beats him to death with a crowbar, and then gets arrested by the cops without putting up a fight at all. Which it is also stated that he did after putting Barbara Gordon in a wheelchair. We also learned that Jim Gordon was killed after having a heart attack as a result of being frozen in a block of ice by Mr. Freeze. Batman recruited Jason Todd only a week after Dick left. Also, when Jason died, Batman was out of town and not actually coming to save him. He basically emotionlessly buried Jason in a very small funeral like the day after he died. And then after a fight with Dick, when Dick finds the repository of potential Robins, goes and beats Joker to death with a crowbar as Bruce Wayne. Fuck. Fuck. So, Jason Todd is basically an in-name only character here. Like, they directly state that Jason Todd wasn't much of a reader in this version. Jason Todd is a giant bookworm that has his own private library in Wayne Manor in the comics, by the way. Jason Todd is not supposed to be an idiot. He knows better. He knows how dangerous the Joker is. This version of Jason Todd has already fought and apparently lost to Deathstroke. Why the hell is he going after the Joker? It all just kind of feels like an extension of the mentality of, like, the whole series of Jason Todd is the asshole Robin. Jason was also taking some sort of inhalant because of something that happened in season 2, I'm assuming. Maybe they'll bring that back later and say that's why he felt so brash to go and attack the Joker. I don't fucking know. But I want to talk about the biggest gripe I had with this episode, which is Bruce killing Joker, and what that means for the rest of the fucking season. Jason Todd was never mad with Batman for not being able to save him. He directly says that he had already forgiven him for that. He understood there was no way that he could have been saved. Jason Todd becomes Red Hood almost exclusively because Batman didn't kill the Joker. He takes the lethal route because he is showing Batman that it is a possibility. He's showing Batman that you can kill supercriminals, and that, from his point of view, the world's better off for it. On top of showing that crime can be controlled. That's like the whole point of Under the Red Hood. Batman killing Joker with a fucking crowbar in the first episode of this season. Why the fuck does Jason even come back as Red Hood? Like, him subverting Batman's message and deciding to control crime doesn't really make any sense if Batman already proved the fucking point. Now that you have all the context, I have so much more to say. More in part 3. Part 3, there's other parts, go watch them. I'm gonna be honest, this is kind of like an expose because I just kind of feel disappointed. I know I'm gonna get a shit ton of these comments. I know the Titans is an Elseworld story. I know it is not telling the story that the comics are telling. I am completely okay with that. Believe it or not, I actually prefer Elseworld stories to normal fucking canon stories. That's how you get amazing creator-driven stories like Arkham Asylum or Harleen. But with that in mind, thinking about those makes me think about a term that is used when describing historical movies. Your movie doesn't need to be historically accurate, it needs to be historically authentic. Meaning it doesn't need to have actually happened the exact way that you're saying it happened, it just needs to make sense with the world and time that you're in. Harleen and Arkham Asylum are great examples of adaptational authenticity. The characters you present need to make sense for the setting that they are put in and the characters that they are. And when adapting a character, I think you need to be authentic to who that character was. Especially if you're producing the first on-screen version of those characters. This is the very first time that most audiences are going to even know who the fuck Red Hood is. Because aside from the animated movie, Jason Todd has shown up in the comics and Arkham Knight, and that's it. So making a story where his character is subverted and changed into something else is detrimental to the public view of that character. So I mean, at least to me, seeing Jason Todd in his first live-action appearance be presented as some dickhead who doesn't listen to anybody or think things through, it hurts. It sucks to know that one of my favorite comic storylines of all time, in the public eye, will most likely be known as the story of how Batman killed the Joker and how the Titans defeated the Red Hood. And that fucking sucks. And don't mistake me, I know that this is purely a me issue. This is why I don't like this show. Someone might see this version of Jason Todd and think that this is the best version that ever has been or will be, and that's totally okay. But as someone who has this deep love for a character that just simply isn't represented, at least not properly, it hurts, man. And the truth is that I'm just focusing on Jason Todd and how they adapted him. But from what I can see, this is the way that they adapted most of the characters. Beast Boy has changed into 3 animals and fucking eats people. Trigon is defeated in an episode. I don't even want to get into Raven. And just watching all of this as a lifelong fan of these characters and where they come from, it just leaves you feeling disappointed. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't hate that the show exists. It is allowing people to get into Titans that would not otherwise get into them. It is giving people characters that they can obviously enjoy. The show's been going for 3 seasons. There's obviously a deep and loving fan base. And for that, I'm deeply grateful. I'm happy that people can find enjoyment in something that I cannot. But with seeing my perspective, I hope that people can now see why can't love this show. I honestly don't plan to watch the rest of season 3, but I really do genuinely hope that it gets better. Thank you for coming to my fucking sad boy hours about teenagers and spandex. Welcome to my new series, Regrettable Superhero of the Week, where I pick one character from the League of Regrettable Superheroes at random out of the book, and then we're gonna fucking talk about him. Last week was Barry E. Ames, the B-Man. Now let's see what this week's is. You. Brother Voodoo. Please, dear God, don't be as bad as you sound. Wait, they're not talking about the Marvel Brother Voodoo, are they? Wait, this is like an established character. Okay, let's just get into his origin. So Daniel Drum is a superhero by the name of Brother Voodoo. He uses a variety of magical voodoo powers that help him fight the forces of evil, mostly voodoo-based evil. Okay, cool. You got that? Hold that in your brain? Great. That one died. A moment of silence for Brother Voodoo 1.
Oh no, he died. So sad.
He was killed by a curse that a novitiate of the serpent god Damballa put on him. Also, when looking this up, apparently Daniel was in Doctor Strange. He's the dude that defends the New York Sanctum Sanctorum when Caecilius invades to destroy it, and in keeping with his comic counterpart, is murked for his troubles. Learn something new every day. Anyway, cut to his brother, Jericho. You could tell which brother was the favorite of the family, seeing as one of them is named Daniel and the other is named fucking Jericho. Anyway, Jericho was a psychologist working in New York. He gets called back to, and I'm gonna pronounce this wrong, Port-au-Prince? I think it's Port-au-Prince? To take his brother's place as Brother Voodoo and defeat Damballa. But the comic makers didn't really want to have the training sequence that would take the months and a fucking montage and all that shit. So he just gets his brother's soul, like, implanted in him and gains all of his knowledge of the mystic arts just that quickly. With the added benefit that he now has a ghost sidekick of his brother. Gone, but not forgotten. Literally, because you're still here, you're a fucking ghost. Brother Voodoo is really cool because he's like one of the only Afro-Caribbean characters, like in comics, period. And on top of that, he's a hero. Like, to show you how important this is, this came out at the tail end of like the Comics Code Authority in the 1970s. This was fucking important. And while this book kind of makes it seem like he just kind of fades off into obscurity, because there's not very many voodoo-based threats to fight, Brother Voodoo is like an important character in comics still. He's made frequent appearances in a lot of Marvel comic books, specifically mostly Avengers books, in like Savage Avengers, New Avengers, Dark Avengers, all of those. His powers are on par with Doctor Strange. Yeah, B-Man was some bullshit, but Brother Voodoo is a badass. Alright, everybody's talking about it, so I should be no different. Let's talk about the No Way Home trailer. I think I can pretty honestly say that this is the first MCU Spider-Man movie that I'm like hyped for. I've voiced in the past a lot of times that I think that MCU Spider-Man is basically just whitewashed Miles Morales, but at least watching the trailer for this one, it kind of seems to me like this is the first MCU Spider-Man story where you couldn't just put Miles Morales in the exact same spot and the story be the exact same. This also seems like the first MCU Spider-Man movie where he has Spider-Man problems. People don't like him. The few people who know his secret identity are constantly in danger. He's constantly being slandered by every single news agency. And as controversial as it is to say, Peter Parker in the comics can be a well-meaning but short-sighted and selfish prick sometimes. So it's nice to see that in the movie a little bit. Also, even the possibility of seeing Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man again just makes me so happy. Also, it kind of looks like Peter gets dropped into Feast from the Spider-Man PS4 game, so are we going to see him in the movie? Regardless, I'm excited as hell.
Like an anti-speedster? Someone that's really slow?
You know what? Surprisingly enough, yeah, there is. His name is Turtleman, and no shit, he was the first gimmicked supervillain that Barry Allen ever fought. Even funnier than that is the Turtleman is a legacy character to a different supervillain named the Turtle. The Turtle was a Jay Garrick, the Golden Age First Flash from the 1940s bad guy, whose whole shtick was very slow and deliberate planning. Usually he uses this ray gun that he has here to basically slow down time, but only on very specific objects, therefore making them slow. Like, he can make you move at like 0.00005% of your speed, or like make a shadow stick to the wall, that kind of shit. Later, he was also revised to be an entity that had the powers of something called the Still Force, which is basically the opposite of the Speed Force, and he was the main villain of a Flash from the future. This dude. So yeah, he's weird, but he exists. So last night, in a bout of terrible insomnia, I went to my local gym and pumped out the hardest fucking leg day I have had in months. And seeing as now my legs currently feel like somewhere in between Mr. Fantastic after getting hit with a horse tranquilizer and Barbara Gordon after an involuntary house call from the circus, it reminded me of a theory that my roommate once told me that I really enjoy. So imagine that the Flash lost his powers. Just one day the Speed Force left him. My roommate argued that he could pick up a different way of fighting crime. That being just kick things. His argument is that after so many years of running at the speed that he has, his leg muscles must be insanely well worked. Like past the peak of human condition well worked. To the point that even if he did not have the speed force in his body anymore, his legs would still be unbelievably fucking strong. And on top of that, every other muscle in his body that would be worked while he was running would also be unbelievably strong. And before you say it, I know that the Speed Force basically allows him to move the way he does and to react the way he does. But the comic logic of what the Speed Force is and how it works is so fucking malleable that honestly this isn't too far out there. They could honestly make the argument, if they ever adapted this story into a comic book, that the Speed Force was just sort of enhancing his body for a short amount of time to be able to do the things he was able to do without assistance, and now that he's lost it, he's used it for so long that honestly he'd be able to get close without it. Like, he won't be the fastest man alive anymore, but Jay Garrick didn't have the Speed Force. His body was just enhanced by chemicals. And I'm not saying still make him like the Flash, where he's running super fast and everything, but maybe like his muscles are super fast acting, but just for like short spurts, because he doesn't have that super endurance anymore. Like, he can kick incredibly fast. His legs and abs are incredibly strong. Like, think of how like mantis shrimps strike 50 times faster than a human can blink. I don't know, I think it'd be a cool idea. Have a speedster get his powers taken away and just immediately transfer into like the fastest hitting brawler out of any of the Justice League. Have him get trained by Batman. Oh, it'd be so cool. I don't know, tell me what you guys think. I think it'd be badass.
Okay, alright.
Okay. We need to talk. Okay, so the other day I was tagged in a video that said that Red Hood is to Nightwing what Shadow is to Sonic, even down to the fucking color schemes and the gun. Which first of all sent fucking chills down my spine, because why the hell would you make me think of that comparison ever? And then it sent me down a goddamn rabbit hole that it's what the fuck? Okay, so get this. Jason Todd died in 1988. Up until the mid-2000s, it was an absolute rule that Jason Todd needed to stay dead. Up until that point, there was a rule that there was 3 deaths in comics that you could never undo. Uncle Ben, Jason Todd, and Bucky Barnes. However, in 2003, there was a fake out in Batman Hush that said that Hush was Jason Todd. This was the first time that we ever saw an adult Jason with the white hair and a black and red color scheme. And while he didn't use a gun in the scene where it was revealed that it was Jason Todd, Hush had used a gun multiple times before that, and it was implied that Hush was actually Jason Todd at that point. This is what he looked like at that time. Keep this in your mind's eye, okay? Shadow the Hedgehog first appeared in Sonic Adventure 2 in 2001. In this game, he looked like this, mostly black with red highlights with a white tuft in his hair, which is behind his hands right now. Which means it's not completely out of the question that this color scheme was heavily based on this color scheme, seeing as this dude appeared 2 years after he did. You cannot tell me there is not a similarity here. But hold on, this rabbit hole goes deeper. Note that for the rest of this argument, I am going to be assuming that the creation of a video game around that time would take roughly around a year to a year and a half, from first concept to ultimate release. Okay, in February 2005, Red Hood first shows up in Batman number 635. And it's not until Batman 638 in March of 2005 that the Red Hood is ultimately revealed to be Jason Todd. Okay, remember that. February 2005 is the first time that the Red Hood showed up in his original red and black costume. Not the brown leather jacket, the full black outfit with the dark gray pants, white chest, and red hood. Okay, remember that. In March 2005, Shadow the Hedgehog, the game, is announced. And mind you, Sega wasn't even considering making Shadow the Hedgehog until early 2005. The game was not released until November 2005, nearly 9 months after Red Hood had shown up. And mind you, Shadow the Hedgehog was created by Sega Team USA, meaning that they were much more likely to be influenced by a Batman comic that was sold locally. And I mean, come on, this color placement is almost identical. So let's just do a quick review real quick. Jason Todd reappears in 2003 with a color design that could have possibly been based off of Shadow, who was released in 2001. In early 2005, the Red Hood shows up using guns. It is later revealed that the Red Hood is Jason Todd. 1 month after the arrival of Red Hood, Shadow's game is announced where he uses guns. I'm not saying they definitely influenced each other, but the possibility is there. What the fuck am I doing with my life? And this lighting got me looking cinematic as fuck. So, I got a question for y'all, and I want you guys to answer in the comments. Regardless of the writer, regardless of the stories that take place during that time, regardless of anything, what is your favorite type of Batman? I don't mean like, oh, I like dark and gritty Batman. I mean like, what's your favorite era of Batman? Which again, I don't mean like Gold and Silver Age, I mean like in canon era of Batman. I'll go first. My personal favorite is urban legend Batman, where no one's really sure if the Batman actually exists, where people speculate whether or not he's human, where criminals think that the only reason that the police have a bat signal is as a scare tactic. Very rarely do we ever actually see that Batman depicted in media ever. Batman Arkham Origins did it pretty well, as did Batman Begins, but I really want to see that depicted in popular media just once or twice. It'd be awesome. Oh, and the runner-up is Purple Glove Batman. In case you were wondering, this is what real fear looks like. Man, I was just laying down to take a nap. Now I gotta tell y'all my fucking movie pitch. Okay, cause no, I've put a lot of fucking thought into the idea of a horror movie based around the urban legend version of Batman. Alright, so get this. The movie does not focus on Batman himself, but on a low-level mobster. Like, just starting out, first couple of days on the job mobster. You can have him be Bill or Joey Frost or whoever the fuck you want him to be. Essentially, I would want it to be Batman Year One, as told from a ground-level mobster. You kinda would never see Batman, with like one exception, but we'll get into it. So as the movie starts out, it's just a regular mob movie. But as it progresses, slowly rackets are starting to get taken down. No one ever dies, and all of the enforcers say the same thing. It was some sort of creature. It was a Batman. And throughout the movie, you get flashback tellings of how these fights went down. Every time, Batman being shown is something different, with only two things ever being the same. He looks like a bat, and his eyes glow white. And I'm just now realizing I will not have time to get into how I want the finale to go, so more in part 2, I guess. This is part 2, go back and watch part 1 for context. Okay, bat horror movie, let's get into it. All of these different mobsters are telling the same story, there's only two commonalities. It looks like a bat, and its eyes glow white. About halfway through the movie, the mobsters see the bat signal for the first time. And they have to decide, does that mean that Batman is a cop, or does that mean that they're warning the public that he's not? I would want Batman to show up on the news multiple times, but I want it with a twist. I would want Batman to have technology on his suit that makes it so that whenever he's filmed on camera, the footage is scrambled and his eyes glow. So he just looks like a demon-shaped silhouette with glowing eyes in staticky, fucked up footage. Never shot professionally, always amateur, always ground level, always terrifying. And as these rackets are taken down, as more and more mobsters are put away, I want the grunt that we started out with to raise through the ranks until eventually he's running his own racket. The last racket that the mob has. And the finale of the movie would start with all the lights going out, a crash being heard, and a batarang hitting the wall. More in part 3. This is part 3, there's 2 other parts, go watch them. Batman horror movie pitch part 3. All the lights go out, you hear a crash of glass, and a batarang hits the wall. The final 20 minutes of the movie would be this small group of mobsters headed up by our grunt trying to hunt the Batman. And I don't want Batman to be shot like a hero here. He is a monster. Crawling on the ceiling, choke slamming people through walls, that kind of shit. I want when mobsters disappear, it's implied he's killing them. We'll know from all of his previous takedowns that he isn't, but the way he's disarming them looks horrendously brutal. Mostly because we're seeing it through the eyes of our terrified protagonist. Until eventually he's the last one left and he says, fuck it. He runs to the roof. He needs to get out of here. He runs out to the roof, he points a gun at the door and he waits. The door opens and he opens fire. Just empties the fucking clip in. And nothing but smoke pours out. Because the Batman is right behind him. He grabs our guy by the throat and he holds him over the ledge of the building. And we get something similar to the Michael Keaton speech from the Tim Burton Batman. I want you to tell all your friends about me. More in part 4, I guess? This is a part 4. I'm sorry for how many parts. I didn't think I had this in me. Go back and watch the other 3 parts for this. Batman horror movie pitch part 4. So Batman gives his I want you to tell all your friends about me speech to the guy, and he's also trying to pry information out of him. And our guy's terrified, he's screaming, he's trying to get out. We see Batman in person here, but it's really shaky and you can't see like his face. Again, bat-shaped silhouette, glowing white eyes. And as he scares our guy more and more, he's not responding to questions, he's just freaking the fuck out. He takes that batarang that Batman threw into the wall earlier. By the way, I didn't mention it, this guy picks it up at some point, and he stabs Batman in the shoulder. This is the first guy to ever make Batman bleed. And in pain, Batman drops him. Guy's freaking out, thinking he's about to die, and all of a sudden Batman catches him with the grapple hook. Pulls him back up to the roof, and in his fucking terror and exhaustion, our guy starts to pass out. And as he's going out, he sees this new Batman who just almost killed someone turn away and start to remove his mask in terror. But he blacks out before he sees anything. Fuck, there's just a little bit more. Part 5, fuck! Okay, I'm gonna try and make this the final part. I promise. Part 5, go watch the previous 4 parts for context. Our guy wakes up in the hospital, surrounded by other mobsters. They say they found him tied up on the roof. Everyone else was tied up inside. There was no trace of Batman at all. And our guy's really fucking rattled at this point. And he tells them, Batman's just a man. I made him bleed. I saw him take his mask off. I don't know who he is, but he took it off. And the mobsters don't believe him. How could one guy do everything that the Batman has done? So they tell him, you've had a long couple of days. Sleep it off. You'll have your job waiting for you in the morning. That night, our guy can't sleep. Every time he closes his eyes, all he sees is those fucking glowing white eyes. Our guy shoots up, hyperventilating. And he looks in the corner, and he sees a bat trapped inside. Cut back to our guy, and he looks out the window. See the bat signal. At this time of night, it almost looks like the moon. And the last shot of the movie is it cutting back to our guy with a dark silhouette standing behind him. That's my pitch. Let me know what you guys think about it. So if you already follow my Instagram, you can go ahead and move along. I'm going to show them what I showed you guys yesterday. So the other day, I gave you guys a pitch for what I would do with a Batman horror movie, which was essentially a movie about the start of Batman from the perspective of the Goons, where he's still this scary, unknown monster where they don't even know if he's human or not yet. And in that pitch, I said that anytime you would see Batman, which is not a lot, it would be on news footage or surveillance footage, and it would be grainy, out of focus. His eyes would glow in intense white. Essentially, Batman would be a cryptid. So, yeah, I might have gotten bored in between classes and did some concept work for how that might look. Here's another one from a helicopter. Essentially, it would be kind of like Mothman with horns. And both of these pictures are over on my Instagram in much, much better quality if you want to check them out there. Hope you guys like them, and I'm sorry the audio's unsynced. I don't know what the fuck is going on. Well, I just got done with my first day of my last year of college. So instead of doing all of that homework that I probably have, but I don't know because I wasn't listening. That was a joke, kids. Do your homework, stay in school. Let's do a regrettable superhero of the week. Who are we going to get today? You. Dracula? Dracula? I haven't, read this yet, but, I'm 98% certain that this dude just jacked, most of the Phantom's outfit while he was in the changing room and then went to a costume shop and picked the worst headdress. Why does it only cover the bridge of his nose and his nostrils? Bro, why do your hands look like that? What the fuck? What is this design? Okay, so, after reading this, have you ever watched Young Frankenstein? Because this dude's origin is essentially Young Frankenstein. First, a little backstory. So, Dell Comics, the publisher that Dracula is printed under, got their start doing adaptations of Universal characters. So they did comic adaptations of movies like Frankenstein, the Wolfman, the Creature from the Black Lagoon, all that sort of stuff. And they wanted to kind of spice up their stuff. They wanted to do some superhero stories. So they made 3 characters. Frankenstein, based on Frankenstein, Werewolf, based on the Wolfman, and Dracula, surprisingly based off of the Mummy. It was based on Dracula. Anyway, as for in the story, remember how I said that this is Young Frankenstein? Yeah, so our hero with the terrible fashion sense here is actually a direct descendant of Dracula. Yeah, that Dracula. This Dracula, though, is a scientist that set up his research facility in Old Castle Dracula, as one tends to do. The specific thing that our hero is researching is a chemical cure to traumatic brain injuries, which, like most modern medicine, is actually composed of a pretty major dosage of bat blood. I'm assuming he's not FDA approved, I'm not sure. Yes, so anyway, he has just an open glass in the lab that he's drinking from that he accidentally dumps a shit ton of his serum in, and then accidentally fucking chugs it. He then turns into a bat, as well as gaining, superhuman strength and superhuman senses, and I'm guessing flight? Because that sure looks like flight. Meanwhile, it turns out the people living in the town that Castle Dracula is near really don't like somebody researching in that castle. They're just being there. The person who used to live there was a major fucking dick because he was Dracula. You see, they burn it down, and this prompts our hero to move to America and become a superhero. He even adopts a new secret identity of Aloysius Ulysses Card. His name's fucking Alucard. He made his name Alucard! He also has a very specific oath. I pledge by the strange powers which have become mine to fight against the injustice, corruption, evil, and greed which fills this earth, and hopes that somehow my example will be an example to all men. And like a true fashion icon, he donned a fucking purple jumpsuit and bright red bonnet. Also, his girlfriend is his sidekick. Her name is Fleeta, short for Fledermaus. It's German for bat. I probably pronounced it wrong, whatever. Her real name is Bibi. Yeah, this dude had 3 stories. Ever, and then he disappeared. And that's Dracula. Alright guys, that is going to be it for last month. I'm sorry, I was moving into school, so I had to take about a month off to get everything ready. I just want to take a moment to thank all of my lovely patrons over on Patreon: Anna Sauls, Ash Dulworth, Brandon Laney, Cassie Pace, Chaz Masters, Danny Walker, DeCassowary, Diandra, Dragon Fang, Gas Boss Gate Light Girl Keep, Gummy Bud, Jenny Chanti, Jessica Berman, Kat Stevens, Christina Odd, Linda Mackert, Ma Goo, Mary Baldwin, Pandora A, Silver Bullets 23, Tarara, The Bison 01, Theresa Harrison, The Rider of Darkness, Victor Viral, and Virgil, as well as every single other person that donates to me every month. If you would like your name read out in the credits of all of my YouTube videos, go and donate at least $15 or more on my Patreon. The only way that any of this happens is by all of you guys and your lovely, generous donations, so I cannot thank you enough. You guys are amazing. I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, I'm sorry for being late this month, and I hope to see you next time.